Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Two Shots on the Ball, AUS Pros Edition. Our guest this week is well known in AUS folklore, Rookie of the Year 09-10, AUS Champion with the Acadia Axeman 2011-2012, three-time Pest of the Year / AUS Defensive Player of the Year, and the AUS MVP in his last year. He's logged 5 years of pro basketball in Europe. It was cut short due to COVID. He's current member and big man for Team Canada. It's Owen Klassen. How's it going, Owen?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Fantastic to have you on. A Team Canada member, this is just so special. So we'll get the other two introduced here. Adam, how are you doing from the parking lot in Canada?
From the parking lot, yeah, on the move, man. Happy to have someone actually bigger than Coach Skin on the podcast. That's positive. That's probably one and only. It's all good.
Yeah, that's a perk. How are you doing? CBU head coach Matt Skin.
Doing good. I've actually got some golf in, so I'm waiting for you guys, man. I'm waiting for the challenge.
Every week you mention this golf. You better be getting some good when we show up.
Listen, my former coach, who I first played for, Billy Burns, he's gonna be 68 years old, and he kicks the shit out of me all the time. He is unbelievable. He's
had more time to practice.
Oh man, he shot 69 the other day, just easy. He shoots his age all the time. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
I'm not playing with that guy.
So are you around him? Is that what we're
saying? I can hang, but like 69, that's crazy. I was 75 today.
75. I can't play with that. I'm 96. I'm breaking 95. That's a great day. Right on. But we'll get to some basketball, Owen. You're a native from Kingston. Yeah, go, Matt.
No, I was just going to say it's great to have you on. It's been really cool from my perspective here the last couple of weeks to, have some players that I've coached against in the past and things like that. And I honestly, as a coach preparing, you're definitely the toughest guy to prepare for on a night to night basis. So you're unbelievable. So I would love to hear how you felt, talk a little bit about your decision to go to Acadia, and then talk about how that 5 year in your career there kind of propelled you to where you are now.
So definitely in high school, I was not as focused on basketball as a career path as I was in university. I knew that I was going to be able to use it to get my school partially covered or fully covered, and that was kind of my focus coming out of high school. So I knew that I wanted to set myself up well for the future. So I picked a school that had a good reputation in the program that I was interested in. I lucked out that they actually that Steve Bauer had been appointed the interim coach the year before I got there, and so he came to me and sort of showed me this master plan of all the players that he was looking at and he was going to bring in, and that he made it, well known that he wanted to build around me, and just made me feel really comfortable with the way that he had planned the team to be built. And I think it was more just that the academic side and the athletic side were at a level that I was comfortable with, and also far enough away from where I grew up that my parents wouldn't be sort of at every game and me falling back on them and going home to do laundry and stuff like that. I think that was kind of important for me as well, that I move away on my own. So it was kind of just like a perfect storm, a combination of all those factors that Acadia was was the school that I chose. And once I went out for my visit, I knew that just the feeling of Wolfville and I guess like the laid back sort of culture of the Maritimes was just, I don't know, fit perfectly with I don't know how I felt like I wanted to live that 4 or 5 years. And obviously it ended up working out in my best interest. And
it wasn't the shirts that the people were wearing in the stands on your recruiting visit.
That helped. But if I'm being perfectly honest, when I went for my visit, we were playing against St. FX, and St. FX always, of course, had strong teams. So Acadia was in a little bit of a rebuilding process, and we were getting pounded. And at halftime, the athletic director looked over at me, Brian Heaney, actually a pretty well-known Acadia basketball player, looked over at me. He said, "This game is terrible. You want to get some McDonald's?" And we ended up actually leaving at halftime to go get something to eat.
Amazing.
So,
amazing.
Yeah. I don't know. I fell in love with the place when I went to visit. Steve knew what he wanted to do with the basketball side. The feel in the classroom and all that stuff was perfect. And like I said, just like a perfect storm of everything lined up the way that I would have wanted it for my university experience.
But then, you talked about the academic side a few times there, and that was a big draw for Steve and you, because, you're one of these guys, people think of jocks, athletes, pro athletes not being good in the books. You could not go to class 3 days a week, show up, write the test on Thursday, and get 99. You were that type of cerebral guy, and you brought that to the court. So if you're building a centerpiece, they need to have the basketball IQ. You studied the scouting report just as hard as you studied those academic books, man, and I'm sure that is boding you well to this day.
Yeah, probably shouldn't be advertising the fact that I skipped classes, but
you did. You could, but now that you said it.
No, but I definitely, I'm just someone who picks things up quickly. I'm not saying it as like a bragging thing, but it's just like I don't know, something that I've been, I don't know, I guess like gifted with. Just as like some people are athletic or some people are talented with music, like it's just something that I had. And yeah, it definitely did help in terms of like scouting reports and stuff. And actually that made Steve, I think, an even better fit for me, because he was so into the analytical side of basketball and telling me about stats that I'd never even heard of, telling me that, oh, this is how many points per possession we get after you get a stop on defense personally. Like, it's like stuff you would never think of. And he's running all these stats, trying to figure out the best lineups to put on the court at a certain time, or who should be taking shots, or what plays we should be running. Like, it was just, I learned so much in terms of like thinking the game from him that I definitely have used going forward.
Yeah, that's so impressive. So analytics is such a huge part of the game today. And, in 2009, you're saying that, you were being taught this game 10 years in advance. Is that kind of the situation? Well,
you look at Steve, and he didn't have a ton of coaching experience when we started playing for him at Acadia. I mean, he was an assistant coach for a few years, and obviously knew the game well enough. But I think it was really, he had a business degree, and I think it was really his like mathematical and like organizing and analyzing side that really like catapulted him forward. And obviously he put the effort in, and he did tons of on his own time, like coaching clinics and just getting experience at the highest level. But I think the way he thought and like the way he organized his thoughts, I think that's what led him to be such a good coach, and obviously gave him the opportunity that he has now with the women's national team.
Yeah. So
go ahead, Neil.
So in 2011, this plan that was drawn up before you make it to Acadia, it pays off in 2011, and you end up beating St. FX, the team that you just said you watched half a game on your recruiting trip. So what did that mean to you? 3 years in, Steve stuck to the plan, and you guys came through big. What was that like as a team?
So it was funny because one of the assistant coaches for us at the time, Coach Vino, who was around the program, and he played at Acadia as well. he gave us a speech before the game, and it was basically that we had this plan, and it was a plan to win a championship by the end of our 4 or 5 years, and that we had actually exceeded what our goal was for each year moving forward. So it definitely was a combination of the players that we brought in and the tactics and the coaching, but it and obviously didn't turn out the way we wanted by year 4 or 5. But I think it was just what we said, like sticking to this plan, this 4-year plan that he had, and really looking towards the future, because a lot of people are just like, okay, this season is going to happen. This is what our goal is for the season. But it was more like, even if we had a season that was a little bit above or a little bit below, it was the main 4-year, 5-year plan that we were really thinking about.
The mission statement was the same throughout.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, Steve's gonna love all this press you're giving him, man. He's
Yeah, it's funny. I'm actually working with a strength and conditioning coach that I deal with in the summers, and he's putting together like a youth long-term development program that has a series of questionnaires over a 4 to 6 week window, and I'm sort of working through it with him to kind of edit it. So I've really been thinking about like my development and like the coaches and the situations that I've been put in that has led me to this. So I guess I just have my mind kind of stuck on that.
No, that's good. Steve and I still talk, like, a few times a week, where he's one of my closest friends. So it was quite the dynamic when we were going against each other, but also a lot of fun, because we would be able to talk right up until game time, and then we would look down at each other on the sidelines, and we were assholes to each other during the games.
It's an amazing thing, the basketball community, that you can be like bitter rivals for 4 years, and then like for us, like I never knew you as more than an opposing coach for 4 or 5 years, and now you're saying you've been following my career, and it's just nice that people you don't even think about in terms of like friendships are following you as a friend would, because the basketball community is so close. And it's, I don't know, that's one thing that's nice about the East Coast. And I think that's like, it's similar everywhere, but I think in the East Coast, it's even more prevalent.
Yeah. Let's get into some, a couple of questions. I think some of the listeners and viewers are going to want to know, because you've had such a great career, and you've been able to go, and play at such a high level. Let's run through a few things to kind of give some information to those people. So who are some of the best players that you played against when you were in high school, when you're in AUS as a pro for Team Canada? Like give some details about that, like a guy that you just went onto the floor against, maybe for Team Canada, and you're just like, oh man, this guy's really good.
Yeah. So this really tests my memory to go back to high school, but
well, you can get whatever you want, man. You can go whatever level you want. Doesn't matter.
No, I have a couple like stories that stick out a little bit in my mind. The first one being Corey Joseph. So when I was in high school, I lived in one of the smaller cities in Ontario, Kingston. It's about, I don't know, like 120,000 people. We had one club team that was competitive, and we somehow always made it into like the top club bracket for the final tournament.
I used to play at the Frontenac High School tournament all the time when I was in high school. So
so we would travel to normally Toronto or GTA and play against all these teams that had collected the best players from all over the GTA. We played teams from Ottawa that had collected all the best players from Ottawa and surrounding area, and somehow we competed with them. I mean, we had a pretty talented team at the time, I thought, but looking back, like these teams that we're playing against have like multiple NBA players on them, and our team has a couple guys that played in university. So it's definitely impressive that we were keeping up with them. But the one game that I distinctly remember was we're playing against Scarborough Blues, and this is the team that had been first place almost every year, and for some reason I can't remember why. Corey Joseph wasn't there for the game. So we're like, oh, okay, perfect. Like that helps us. We need a little bit of help. And we're up like 15 at halftime. And we're like, man, this is it. Like this is going to be the big win that like catapults us up to the next level. And sure enough, Corey Joseph shows up at halftime. And he's like putting on his shoes, like just as like the buzzer's going to like start the game again. He's putting on his shoes. And he comes out, and I think he had 20 something in just the second half. We ended up losing. But just at that point, like you knew that he was like something special. And obviously now, like he's one of the more recognizable Canadian basketball players. And it's just funny how like obvious that was when we were playing against him, that like you just knew he was something special. And obviously to play against him then, and then to play with him on the national team this past year, like it's just, I don't know, it's almost surreal, but it's just like it shows how far I've come in terms of my development in basketball.
We talk a lot, not to cut you off, man, but we talk all the time about what inspires people to get to that next level. And you saw it from high school. You knew Corey Joseph was going to be something. And then by the time you get to the AUS, you knew the level of detail, the level of work, and all of that you had to put into it. One of my favorite stories, and then I'll let you get to how you whoop people's ass in the AUS, but this is how you got to it. I'm walking through the gym one night, man. At the end of the night, we were doing meetings or something. It was like 10:30. We hear this yelling in the gym. We're like, Jesus, is there a game? Pick up. We look down. You're solo in the gym, sprinting down, simulating transition defense, just yourself. And you're yelling all the spots you're in. I'm in help. I'm here. I'm at the top of your lungs doing it. And I remember one of the female volleyball players comes out, and she looks down. She's like, is this guy crazy? Like, what's happening? I'm like, that's how you get it done at an elite level, right? Like, nothing went unrehearsed for you. And then that's how you coupled that with your skill. And again, just destroy people, man. So continue, but that story popped into my head as you're saying this, because clearly you were inspired to do all of that.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing, because when you say that now, it seems like something completely crazy. But to me, it was just like a normal thing. Like I just knew that it was something that you had to do. And like same thing, like one of the things that me and my family always joke with was that I was almost late for my graduation at Acadia, because I was in Wolfville for just the day to do my graduation. And I ended up spending like 6 hours in the gym shooting, because I had access to the gun and stuff. And I was just like excited that like I could get in the gym and like get some work in. Yeah, but moving on to the AUS, one of the things that I think like actually made us more successful probably is we went into almost every game with the feeling that we were the ones that had to be beaten. That it wasn't that we had to go beat the other team. It was, we're the ones that have to be beaten. We're the better team. We just have to go in and play and like show that we're the best. And that was our thought process going into every game. So it's tough to say that there was people that we were playing against that we were like worried about. Obviously you have scouting reports and you know who the good shooters are, you know who's going to do this, who's going to do that. Like there's guys who are annoying because like Jimmy Dorsey, who like you can plan whatever you want for him, but he's still probably going to score 50 points. And like, it's a pain in the ass, but it's not like before the game, you're like, oh man, I'm afraid that we're playing against this guy, or I'm afraid that we're playing against that guy.
Right.
But I would say like the people that I didn't like playing against were those type of people who just like, they could just explode and there's nothing you could do about it. And that feeling of like helplessness when they're hitting and 1 threes and seemingly getting wherever they want on the floor. Like I think that would be like what I remember about AUS basketball, like Jimmy Dorsey, Javon Masters, T-Bear from St. FX, like those type of guys, Simon Farine from Dow, like the guys that you knew were good and they're averaging 20 points a game, but you also know that 20 points could have been 9 points last game, and this is about to be 30 on you. So I think it's those guys that we were the most worried about.
Right on. So 3-time Defensive Player of the Year in the AUS Conference. And I like to think that we have a younger generation going to listen to this podcast. How did you stay so hungry? Where did you learn that defense was going to be a role that I need to play to make it to the next level? Like you just mentioned that hard work almost came naturally to you. Just you didn't even realize you were working hard in some situations, but it came natural. So how did you just become this defensive minded player and figure out how to make a complete game out of it instead of, the flash and high flying scoring?
For me, the things that you can add to a game, every game, no matter what, is defense, rebounding, and communication. And I like to think that those are the three things that I'm probably best at if I look at myself honestly. And like you said, like it's part just hard work. You can have games where you're not shooting well. You can have games where the ball just doesn't feel right in your hands. You're throwing turnovers. You can't do a normal crossover, like you end up turning the ball over. But as long as you get back and play defense, there's no like small motor movements with defense that you have to worry about. It's just if you have the effort, you'll excel in it. And
if you can stop it means a lot.
Yeah, I think the same thing with rebounding and with communication. And man, looking back on university, the way that universities are set up, where you're living with your teammates and you're eating with your teammates and you just spend so much more time with them. I think that communication part almost naturally gets built a little bit more on its own, because now once you get to the point where it's just a job, you've got guys who've got families, you've got guys who are living by themselves, and they're going out to do things on their own when practice is over. Where at university, like you would practice is over, everyone goes up to the meal hall and eats together. You got classes together, you live together. It's just a completely different thing. And now that's, I would say, one of the bigger things with becoming a professional is that some of these guys treat it as a job. They show up, they put in their work for, you have 2 hours of practice or whatever, they put in their work for 2 hours, and as soon as practice is over, they shut it off and they go home. And it makes it a little bit more difficult to build that, I don't know, like that communication, that team chemistry, spirit, the chemistry, all that stuff. It just, it's definitely much more challenging at a level where everyone has their own things going on. And it's not to say that they don't care about basketball, but it's just that when you're an adult, like, you have much more responsibility than just playing basketball and going to school. And that's one of the things I miss about university basketball, is that, like, that's all you had to worry about. That everything else was taken care of on its own. So it's definitely one of the biggest changes.
I think that's what I really try to talk to any former players of mine that have gone on to play professionally, how you transition from this like team first culture that most universities are trying to push to basically an individual first mentality that you have to have as a professional. Because like you said, you have to be able to put up numbers and play well and make sure that you're looking out for yourself while fitting into that team dynamic of trying to be successful with your team. So what are some of the things now? I know you're a worker. Like, what are some of the things right now that have been challenges during COVID, as far as training is concerned? And then also, what are some of the specific things on your game that you're working on that you think can push you to the next level?
So right now it's been really challenging for me. Like I said to you guys before we started, I don't really have like a home base that I consistently come back to in the off season. My fiance and I have been living in Toronto generally in the off season, but it'll just be, we'll find a short-term rental for the summer. And whether I'm training with Canada Basketball or with this trainer that I mentioned before, it's sort of like a 2-month at home thing. You do as much as you can to try and get better, and then you head back over. But obviously this summer is far different. The season ended in March, which means that at this time it's been about 3 months probably, and no gyms have been open. I mean, not that I have access to. If any of you guys know of any, then let me know, because I would definitely be in there. But the biggest thing for me, I think, is worrying about staying in shape. because obviously it's easier to just stay in shape than it is to get out of shape and work your way back into it. But I think it would be dishonest to say that any basketball players right now are in game shape still. I think it's almost impossible when you don't have the facilities and people to play with. Even the guys who are getting in the gym are only able to do one-on-one workouts and stuff like that, from what I've heard. It's not possible to stay in game shape. So I think that there's going to be I don't know how long it'll last, but there'll be a noticeable like work the rust out period once basketball starts up again. But for me, like I said, just focusing on staying in shape. I managed to find a couple dumbbells and kettlebells and stuff like that. So I'm lifting right now, which is something that I can do pretty consistently. Obviously running is something you can do on your own. Skipping, jumping jacks, literally like the most basic exercises that you can think of. Keeping a ball in my hands, just whether it's tossing it back and forth, laying on the floor, shooting up towards the ceiling, or working on dribble moves, like just having a ball in your hands so that when you pick it up in however long it takes for this to get all finished up, that when you're picking up the ball and you feel like you've never touched it before, like that's probably not a good thing to have going on. And then finally, something that maybe people wouldn't think of, but working on the mental aspect of the game, whether it's watching video of myself or watching video of someone else to see how they do something well or how they do something poorly, or just finding ways to keep learning when you don't have that ability to learn from your own feedback, I guess. And another thing, like the mental skills side of the game in terms of visualization and putting yourself in situations that you know that you're going to be in, and just running them through your mind. I mean, it's not perfect, but it definitely is something that you can probably be doing that will benefit you. But it's been tough.
I was about to throw the joke in there, Owen, and say the Matt Skin kettlebell workout. He's been telling us he's in the best shape of his life, whipping these kettlebells around, and then you brought it up. So I guess he's not lying to us. That's a positive.
For me, it was just finding something that I haven't really been doing, and I could add. Going out with the same dumbbells and doing the same 10 exercises every day was driving me nuts. So I was lucky enough to get a kettlebell from my fiance's brother. He works for a physio clinic, and they couldn't see clients, so he was just like, "Yeah, what do you want from the clinic? If you could have one thing, what would it be?" And I was like, might as well try a kettlebell and see what I can do with that. So I don't know, it's fun.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what? Matt asked you, it's tough to get a new skill right now, but it had me thinking about your transition from the AUS to pros. Like when you were with Acadia, often nights you had to do it all, man. Carry the rock up, shoot it, score it, rebound it, block it at the other end. And then you get to a pro team, there'd be a lot more role definition, I would guess, particularly earlier in your career as a rookie, second year, third year guy. How hard was that to adjust to a role, or did you just get kind of laser focused on what you thought you needed to do, or what the coaches told you you needed to do, and then just executed that, as opposed to, like you said, everything that you had to do before?
Yeah. I mean, coming in as an import, you're kind of expected to do more than the local players, I would say. So even though you do have like a certain role and a certain position that they're trying to put you into, you still do have that kind of feeling where like there are a lot of things that you have to be doing. For me, obviously, like I said, like defense and rebounding has always been the biggest thing for my game. So I'm focused on that in terms of the games, but then you're always working on skill development. So I think like the biggest things are in Europe, almost always it's pick and roll. Almost every possession you have at least one, maybe more. So for me, a big thing was going from having the ball in my hands and trying to make something out of it, and now it's gone into more, how can I set myself up to get open and to give my guard an angle to pass it, because it's a different thing to score without the ball than to be the one who just every time down they just throw it to you and you create something. And it can be frustrating when you go a couple possessions and you don't touch the ball. And I think that it's definitely was a big change from Acadia to my first year, that I kind of had to learn that you have to take your opportunities when they come. And I obviously had to learn that I need to find a way to make more opportunities for myself. So that was kind of what I focused on, is being able to score without the ball, and putting myself in positions that make it so that if my teammate doesn't pass me, then it's a bad decision.
All right, we got about 5 minutes left in this record, but I got to ask you if world champ Nick Nurse has added anything to your game.
I mean, for me, his biggest strength is that he doesn't care what anyone thinks of him. And if he has a strategy that he thinks is going to be the way to win a game, he's putting that strategy in. Doesn't matter if you lose the game, he'll take the heat. He doesn't care what you have to say about him, basically. And I mean, I don't know where that
doesn't matter. It's the winning roster that his plan is going out there. Hey.
Yeah, I don't know where that confidence comes from, but it's definitely a little bit contagious. Like you when you hear him say, like, all right, this is the plan and this is how we're going to win, like, you believe it and you go out there and you do exactly what he tells you, because you're like, worst case, like, we lose this game and he's taking it because he is so confident that he has made the right decision in terms of planning. And it's I don't know, a good example of it is playing like box and one or triangle and two, something like most coaches would never even think of, because everyone else is going to say, oh, that's stupid. That's a high school defense. Like, that's a junk defense. And he's busting it out in the NBA playoffs or in the world championships. Like, he just doesn't care what anyone thinks. If he thinks it's the best strategy, then that's what he's going to do.
Amazing. Man, I just want to thank you for taking the time, man. This has been awesome. You know, we've had a great series, but, you know, to have a player as accomplished as you, and, you know, I appreciate you saying that. I've always been a big fan of yours and of your game, right? So I hated coaching against you, but always been a huge fan of yours. And it's great to see a guy still with the humility and the humble, you know, having this humble attitude that you still do. You know, especially after everything that you've accomplished and the level that you've played at, man, it's amazing to see. And just congrats on your success, and all the best with your continued success moving forward.
Yeah, thank you a lot. I appreciate it. And yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, man, I can't let you go without a lighthearted story. We got to drop my all-time favorite practice lap. Owen's working with Bryce Tully, our mental skills coach, worked with Canada Basketball now, unreal. But he had it in his mind that you were a little too negative on yourself and using a few too many four-letter words. We'll let the audience guess what those might be. And so he decided one practice that every time you dropped said word, he was going to buzz the horn. He sat at the clock for 2 hours. So you drop one, nah, drop one, nah, and then you are a pretty, we'll say, stubborn, focused, we'll use the word focused guy. At one point, there was an exchange of about 10. And then you I don't know, you just booted the ball. You're like, I'm fucking done with this. I just dropped one on the podcast. But I never, like, I didn't laugh anymore. And the more we laughed, the more fired up you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Like the battle of the wills, you and Bryce.
That's funny that you say that. Actually, when I think back to it now, I think there was some kind of punishment too. Like it must have been like 10 push-ups or one down and back or something every time too, because I do remember that.
Oh, it's unbelievable, man. But you know what? It just talks about the work you put in from then to now. Just echoing what Coach said. Just congrats on everything, bro. We're all, you know, super proud of you out east here, and keep it rolling.
Awesome. Thanks, man. It's been good to see you guys, and I wish you guys all the most success in the future.
Thanks so much. Yeah.
You're the man. This is great.
All right, so we just wrapped up with the great Acadia Axeman Owen Klassen. You know, it's nice to talk basketball, but we're in some really tense times here in the world, and I just think the three of us should put our 2 cents forward and kind of mention the latest news. And Coach Skin, as a leader and somebody who takes that leadership role and hopes to instill really great morals into somebody, how is the latest racial tensions and police brutality news, how has that affected you?
You know what? I got to say that it's been pretty tough. Obviously, there's been a lot going on with COVID and the pandemic, and there's been a lot of conversations that have happened because of that with our team. And I think I've been pretty emotional over the past week or so, just kind of seeing what's happening. And I got to admit that I feel guilty, bad maybe, that I haven't been more emotional in the past or more consistently about this issue, because it's something that I take very seriously as a coach. And I've coached with and played with so many great Black male and female student athletes, and to see what they have to go through is brutal, and to see how things have materialized in this is brutal as well. And I think the two things that have really shook me in all of this, that I have said to other people that have really angered me. The first thing was that people are trying to dictate how people should riot or protest or try to make a stand. And I just think that's such horse shit. Like, you have no right to be able to do that. Like, there's no right. And the second part is just the complete and utter lack of leadership that exists in so many realms of this, whether it be in the United States of America with their president, whether it be at the state or provincial level within North America. And it's really hard. Like, I mean, I could talk about this for a lot, but I think the reality is that North America is a historically white conservative continent. And the only thing that separated colored people from white people for the majority of time was economic or social and economic classes. And because that equality is becoming more and more, as immigration has created such a beautiful place, that there's just a lot of people who are angered by this. And that, stems into jobs, that stems into police, that stems into everywhere. And it's not good. It just can't happen. And there was even a UBC assistant coach who lost his job for tweets and things like this over this past week. And I don't really care. Like, I'll keep saying, like, fuck racists and fuck racism. Like, it's just so brutal that people have to go through this. And I can't. I have zero ability to relate to any of this as well, being a white man, coming from a great family. But the only thing that I can do is continue to push the great leaders that I coach now and who have coached, and listen to the people who, want to be heard, because everybody deserves a voice in all of this, and everybody deserves to be heard. So, I mean, like I said, I could talk about this for a long time, but hopefully that's a good 2 cents for right now.
Yeah, and you put it in the strongest terms possible, and that's how it should be. People can say what they want, do what they want, protest how they want. I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly with everything you're saying. And you started the whole thing by saying the guilt feeling, or we could have done something before. And the answer to that for all of us is absolutely. Mm-hmm. It shouldn't take seeing these things on video now to awaken us. It's like you don't do maintenance on your house for a long time because you weren't looking for the problem, and then all of a sudden the pipes burst. You say, holy shit, we got to fix this. There's a major issue. Well, listen, had you been looking for it the whole time, maybe you would have got ahead of the problem, right? Maybe it wouldn't be as bad now, as boiling over now. And I think that's, probably the role for all of us three in our, status in society and how we are as white men is to ask the questions for ourselves. People are saying, don't wait to be told by someone else. Go ask the questions, be educated on the issues, find some places to stand and take action. And I think, being in the sporting community where we interact with so many fantastic people of all races, including Black people, we are well positioned to do something, right? And to be as supportive as possible and to try to do the right thing finally for everyone. And like you said, it might not be the prettiest thing when people are protesting or whatever things are happening, but it's all coming from the heart and from a place where change is absolutely needed. And that's on all of us, for sure.
Yeah, well said, guys. And if you shake a bottle of Coke long enough, it's going to pop off, and that's what's happened here in society. And like you say, it's there's no answer that we can say, but to open our ears and continue. As guilty as I feel to say this, I've been quiet, and I've made the commitment now to, if I hear something inappropriate of any kind, I'm no longer going to handle that, and I'll speak up and put people in their place as it clearly needs to be. And that's the only commitment I can make, is to listen and do the research and find out that it's here in Canada as well. There's been enough noise and lies that it doesn't exist here in Canada. The Aboriginal community, and I grew up in Dartmouth, Africville, is sadly forgotten, and it's just really difficult times, and all three of us can just commit to listening and standing up when we need to.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, as a white male in a sport, where is dominated predominantly by Black males, and playing with Black males who are talented and have every right to their place in this sport, and to have, as a player, to have heard racial slurs thrown towards teammates, and to hear racial slurs thrown towards players. I mean, I like I said, and I'll continue to say, I stood up to it then. I'm going to continue to stand up to it. And I right now, living in a predominantly white community where the Black population in a large part is my team, and it's making sure that these guys continue to be the great role models that they are for the community. And I've actually been through all this too. I've gotten great texts and messages from people just thanking the players for being such great role models for young Black people in our community. And those are the things that are the most important. Wins and losses, all this stuff. I get wrapped up in it as much as anybody, but it's just so much more bigger than what basketball is. And I just want to thank you guys for listening and giving me a platform to actually give my 2 cents right now, because it's something that I'm extremely passionate about.
And I know we got some other news to talk about with the AUS and things like that, but this is number one, I know, in all of our hearts and minds right now, and for hopefully as long as it takes to have the appropriate change come. So again, thanks to you guys for being open to talking amongst ourselves. It's something, even this might not have happened not long ago. So I appreciate both of y'all for sure.
So in less important news, but in news, the Atlantic University sport decision has been made. No athletics until January at minimum. So maybe we can just ask a couple questions here to Coach Skin as to your first thoughts on hearing that news.
Obviously, I'm heartbroken first and foremost for the coaches and athletes that I'm around on a day-to-day basis. Coach Dino Morley and Coach Ness Timmons here at CBU run two of the best soccer programs in the country, and always in the top 10, always at the national tournament. The CBU women were expected to host nationals this fall as well for soccer. So for that to be taken away from them is obviously heartbreaking. I think there is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel for them and for some other sports in a lot of ways, because while there are no sports, there's still commitments from universities to allow the student athletes to continue with their studies, and the potential to, compete and not use eligibility during this school year as well. So hopefully that can still happen. The second part is that the hope that something happens within the AUS basketball schedule. Speaking as a basketball coach, with January 1st now 7 months away, we've just been really in the thick of this COVID pandemic for, I think this is day 86 or something like that. So it's still pretty new. And there's been so much change that has happened even within those 90 days. Here's hoping that things get leveled off and there isn't a second wave in the fall, and that competition can be brought forward in some capacity come January. I'm very hopeful for that, for sure. Very hopeful that we'll be able to convene our student athletes in some capacity, in January. And what that season looks like, I have no idea, but I'm very hopeful that something will happen. And, I'm also very confident in the leadership, both at CBU and within the AUS. The AUS is unique as a conference is concerned across the country, just in regard that our university presidents sit on the board for the AUS, and that's different than any other conference in the country. So I know that they'll have the safety of the student athletes in mind first and foremost, and will do everything in their power to push a season or some type of season potential starting in January. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Right on. So what do you think, Adam? You'd be ready when January rolls around?
Well, I think there's a lot of great proposals out there. I saw one. You see different things on Twitter. I know Arash Madani said he had polled some coaches and ADs, and there was a January 1st training camp, start on the 29th. Conference playoffs at the end of March, and then there's kind of a first weekend in April youth sports national championship. Coach, I don't know, you can talk to that kind of timeline, how realistic that is, but at least there's things floated out there for things to get completed, for there to be a youth sport national championship this year. So many people work so hard, including guys like you, Coach, from the top down, AD, coach, players, support staff. There's a lot of people who, and especially the seniors, you think about it, this is some of their last kick at the can. And I know you mentioned the eligibility piece, and that could be a variable there, but there's so much on the line, and so many lives just enthralled in succeeding in university sport. To see it delayed and taken away from certain people in the fall sports, especially, it's kind of heartbreaking, no doubt about it. But we have the best leaders. We have a conference that is people first, which is the Atlantic Canadian way. And I know we're all going to get through this together, no doubt. Really
well said, Adam. That gave me a little goosebump there. The AUS is in great hands, and we've got nothing but faith to this point and hope for the future. So thanks, guys, for giving us your honest thoughts, and really appreciate. We're all going to be louder and commit to making tomorrow a better day for every single person here on the earth. So really appreciate your guys' efforts towards that as well.
Anytime.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon.
Let go.